Now it's time for more Chakotay's Odyssey featuring the adventures of Janeway. Season 2, episode 15 is Threshold. And once again, we watched this episode together.
I was too hot. I had to come downstairs.
We haven't watched a Voyager episode together since episode 3 of season 1. And then you got pissed off and tapped out. So, this was ridiculous episode. It was so ridiculous.
And when I was watching
I'm not saying it was good, but it was funny.
Thinking that I remembered this. And I was thinking what had happened, but I kept on convincing myself, no, that's really dumb. You must be remembering it wrong. Okay. But I wasn't. I remembered it right.
So the episode's called Threshold, and this is a bad title. They're really bad at naming their putting titles on their episodes. But you came up with a better episode. Just call it Tom Paris the Lizard.
I didn't know that, but I never heard it.
This this is a Tom Paris episode. It's
more like an amphibian type
and the reason it's called Threshold is because they're testing out this new trans-warp drive, which I'm pretty sure they use that same term in Discovery, what they call their engine in that first season.
No, that's the mycelium network.
So,
that's something different.
Pretty sure I heard that trans-warp drive somewhere else. So they're trying to get to warp 10 and cross the trans-warp threshold, so that once you hit warp 10, you can be everywhere all at once and just get home in no time. Because that's their whole goal, is to get home.
I mean,
which makes sense.
Be everywhere. He was like everywhere.
So they're testing it for a while, and then they finally, okay, we got it. Because you know what? Him and B'Elanna, who's great at science, and Harry Kim, these three geniuses, figure it out, right? And so suddenly they have this new shuttle, which I think they just copied the CGI from Deep Space Nine, because now all of a sudden they have this new high-tech shuttle that I'm guessing they built, because before their shuttles were just those old white crappy ones, those boxy ones.
They said they had to modify it,
so they built their own shuttle, and Tom Paris actually, hopefully they don't lose this shuttle, Tom Paris actually goes out and he does break the barrier. Okay, he goes to warp 10.
Then he disappears.
And then he comes back, and he's
fine for a while.
He's tripping out. He's acting. They ask him about it, and he's just like so high on this. I was everywhere. I could see everything.
But after that, he's like fine, just sitting in the lounge, like having coffee, and then he
acting
starts,
like a stoner.
Starts like getting like sick.
He got bad stomach pains. He got indigestion.
And I think he's gonna turn into a lizard, and that's what I was saying.
That's what you started thinking.
I really was thinking, that's crazy, Christine. Why are you thinking that? That's the stupidest thing that could happen.
So then he starts looking weird and gets all these veins, and it gets really bad because then his hair starts falling out and his skin starts falling off.
The explanation for it made no sense. And he was de-evolving, not evolving.
He can't breathe oxygen. And they equated that he's because he was able to break this trans-warp threshold, that now his cells are evolving beyond being a human, and he turns into this giant lizard.
Salamander thing. I mean, it would make more sense if he de-evolved.
Now,
that would make more sense. We see
Chakotay a little bit at the beginning, because they have this meeting where they're all giddy and they're talking about, and they're like, oh yes, we're so good at science. We totally solved this. And Chakotay breaks his stern, stoic expression, and he's actually smiling. But we do get to see a lot of the Doctor in this episode with sweaty Cass. I don't think she was that sweaty in this episode, but she's definitely very tiny in this episode. I think they might have sent her away to like one of those Hollywood fat camps where you have to like. Well, that's what Carrie Fisher said about Star Wars in '77.
Oh,
they sent her to what she called a fat camp.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, so I'm guessing they sent her to one of these lose weight camps because she is so tiny. She's the only one that can
help the Doctor. Anyway, he turns into an amphibious creature eventually, but he takes Janeway with him.
He's becoming this lizard man, and it looks ridiculous. It looks so bad. And I'll put it up on screen. It looks so bad.
The timeline didn't really make sense as to how he took so long to evolve, and Janeway only took like 2 minutes.
He kidnaps her and then they go past the threshold again.
Yeah.
And then apparently they come out and they're on this planet, and the crew. So Chakotay and Tuvok go to find them, and they're these two giant lizards, and you can spoil what really happens there.
Yeah, and they have babies.
They have like baby
and they
lizards.
leave the babies there. Now, Prime Directive and all that. Did they? I don't know. Maybe there's no other.
I don't think they collected those kids.
No, they didn't. They left them there. They said they did that, but that's against the Prime Directive.
They left their DNA there.
They left them there
Gross.
on a planet that anyone else could go there and see them or take them or whatever. Anyway, they contaminated the planet. Anyway, they're two giant like salamanders.
So in this episode, Tom Paris, does two things. He breaks the threshold, the transwarp threshold.
Yes.
They shouldn't have named the episode that. And also, he's the only member of the crew and the only man ever to impregnate Captain Janeway. So what they say in Star Trek, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Yeah.
So.
But what I think.
And when they bring them back, they have to get these giant lizards.
But that's the part we don't see, and that's where the episode couldn't have been hilarious.
That would have been, and bringing them back on the shuttle.
Yes, that's the part that really
actually they would just beamed them up.
No, but they really messed up. They should have had two big terrariums for them and had them in there. That would have been just gold, right?
But they just stunned them, and then they got to pick them up.
But I mean, they didn't show any of that. They just all of a sudden went to their normal selves. That would have been hilarious. They could have had so much fun with it.
Well, that would cost more with
effects,
right?
At the end, they have a little bit of fun with it. But it's kind of like really quick. It's over.
Yeah, so they're sitting in the med bay, and so, of course, immediately they're fine because,
right away.
Science medicine.
Like, it's so fast that they're
future
fine.
Science.
Like, all of a sudden.
And they're sitting there, but the doctor says they have to stay there for a couple of days so he can keep eye on them. And Janeway's just joking around with them, like, hey, I want to have kids, but not with you, buddy.
Well, yeah.
It was kind of weird that the captain saying that.
Kind of opportunity. Like, it could have been really funny. I tell you. Like, seriously, they could have leashes on these salamanders. I don't know. It could have been just hilarious. But this is not the lower decks. It's boring Voyager. So even when they have some good material, they don't quite do.
This was a bad episode, but I had fun with it.
I remembered it.
Okay.
And I was like, I think they're going to turn into lizards and have babies.
If only they had thrown Seska in there, this would have been and 7 of 9 somehow. This would have been a way better episode.
Anyway,
I'm guessing.
it was something else.
Okay, did you enjoy this episode?
I did.
Because it was it was bad,
and I remember
but it was fun. Yeah, you had an interesting inner monologue going on as you were watching it.
It's like, it can't be.
It can't be that lizard episode.
They can't.
I'm sure I just dreamed that.
Exactly. I was like, I swear they're going to turn into lizards and have babies.
Apparently, there's an episode coming up this season that's even weirder.
Oh, gosh,
that fans say where two characters combine. And you might know what I'm talking about there, but we're getting to it.
When it gets too hot out and I gotta come down here and watch TV with you.
We had fun with watching this bad episode. It makes me think, one, who wrote this? And when they wrote it, how much alcohol and cocaine was involved in coming up with this? Because this is off the wall, off the charts, wacky, ridiculous.
They should have just sent the shuttle backwards or something and reversed it. It didn't. The explanation didn't make much sense, but I thought it was fun. So
I think they could have come up with a better excuse to turn them into lizards.
I just thought it was hilarious that they were giant salamanders.
Yeah, and that they had like 3 or 4 babies.
They were amphibious because they had like gills and stuff.
I don't know.
They weren't lizards.
I don't know.
Or a new kind of creature.
They look like, I don't know, like very docile, fat versions of like a kimono dragon.
But they didn't have scales. They were really salamander-like. Anyway, they had like whiskers. They were kind of like, one of those fish with the whiskers.
I definitely give that episode a thumbs up. And give us a thumbs up too, because the fans would appreciate it if you enjoyed this segment of Chakotay's Odyssey featuring the adventures of Janeway.